So good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandra Tsvetkova, and today, together with Georgina Humphries, we are going to talk about the TREIO project and some of the tools that we have developed for professionals like yourself that deals with EIOs on a day-to-day basis, or might not be that experienced, but are interesting to learn more. We are not only going through our tools, but we'll try to also give you some context of why this project exists considering the ongoing digitalization initiatives that takes place on European level. Today's webinar is to be recorded, and around the end of the week, we are going to share with you both the recording and today's presentations. So you'll have all these details in your inboxes. So this is the agenda for today. As I mentioned, we'll check first the most recent EU developments and how they correlate to our work. Then Georgina will present the learning course that we have developed for EIO exchanges and the use of the dedicated system for such exchanges that was created recently. And then I will move forward with some additional tools that we have designed and, of course, some information on how you can use these tools. So let's start from the very beginning, like we used to say. So in the past couple of years, there are a number of digitalization initiatives that takes place on European level, and some of them that takes place in the judicial domain concerns mostly different possibilities for electronic exchange of information in cross-border transactions and exchange of evidence. In reality, all these systems and all the issues that we are going to talk about today started back in 2010. At the time, several member states initiated a project to design a secure communication channel for data exchange for the purposes of judicial cooperation. And by the time the project completed in 2016, it has proven to be quite successful with a number of other member states willing to join. A lot of spin-off projects on different use cases in judicial cooperation, also in development. And the European Commission itself recognized the value of having such a secure channel, and not only the value of it, but also the how well this particular project was implemented. And that original project is now known as the eCodex system that you might have heard about. After several years of negotiations, a special regulation on eCodex was adopted in 2022, and it defines the different roles of the member states, the Commission, all the parties involved, their responsibilities, and the overall legal framework for the existence and the operationalization of the eCodex system, making it de facto the European secure communication channel for purposes of data and document exchanges in judicial cooperation matters. Again, considering the success of the original project, the Commission decided to start another one, building on top of the Codex infrastructure. And the purpose of the system they wanted to develop at the time, the eEDES digital exchange system, was to support the member states for judicial cooperation exchanges under different legislative instruments by providing a common software to all member states to ease the work in that sense. And they have decided to pilot this solution with the digital exchange of European investigation orders, mutual legal assistance forms, and interception of telecommunication notifications. Considering this happened in 2016, as you might remember, the EIO directive was just about to apply starting in 2017. So this was an ideal time to actually try and implement a supporting tool for such purposes. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 crisis, the original plans have changed several times, both on the Commission side and the member state side, piloting this solution. So finally, the system was launched in May 2022. And to date, there are 11 member states who have joined the platform in a piloting mode. You can see the member states on the screen. And when I say piloting mode, this means that there are at least a couple of competent authorities that have already been connected to the e-evidence digital exchange system through the Codex environment and are currently exchanging EIOs in a digital format, not just EIOs, but also MLAs and ITS. We know for sure that there are at least 5 or 6 more that are in the final stages of deployment, the e-evidence digital exchange system, while others are still struggling to define what is the best approach, what is the best strategy, and to actually implement it, and are expected to join the platform in the next 12 to 18 months. Of course, this has been a voluntary process so far, which also explains the gradual adoption from the member states. But it has proven to be a successful decision. So over time, the Commission also took quite a number of operative and legislative measures to ensure that this digitalization process continues. So this was about the technical side, like what are the systems that are important for the purposes of today's conversations. And now let's see what are exactly these operative and legal measures that are also equally important in that sense. To support the digitalization of judicial cooperation, 2 years ago, a bit more than 2 years ago, the Commission also adopted a legislative proposal package that resulted, among other legislative acts, in a regulation on the digitalization of judicial cooperation and access to justice in cross-border civil, commercial, and criminal matters. In fact, this regulation was officially adopted in December 2023. It's already in force, and it will apply from 1st of May 2025. It brings on board new rules regarding video conferencing or other distance communication tools in oral hearings. It covers matters related to the electronic communication between natural or legal persons or their representatives and the respective competent authorities. It also mandates new rules for the recognition of documents with electronic signatures or seals, and new rules on the payment of fees through electronic means. However, what is most important for the conversation on the EIOs, this regulation also amends 8 legislative acts and judicial cooperation, affecting a total of 24 legislative instruments, including the EIO. So the regulation says that from a certain point in time, the communication pursuant to these 24 legislative instruments is to be mandatory, implemented by digital means. And the use of the Codex system being the European secure channel for such data and document exchanges will become mandatory. Also, the regulation comments on this solution that I was talking about a couple of minutes ago, the e-evidence digital exchange system, now known as the reference implementation software. And it is to be provided by the Commission to all member states for all these legislative instruments as a support tool. And the member states can opt in to use it or opt out of its usage if they have a national IT system ready to join the infrastructure for such communications. Of course, 24 legislative instruments going digital in one and the same time is quite a number. So for the purposes of securing this process, the Commission have developed a special roadmap. And considering the idea that they want to provide this support tool to all member states, this eEDES platform to all member states, this roadmap also concerns the development of eEDES in future. The use of eCodex will become mandatory, first with the service of documents and taking of evidence in civil and commercial cases in 2025. And then you can see how the legislative aspects and the technical aspects will gradually develop from one legislative instrument to the next, until the full digitalization of all these 24 legislative instruments until 2031. For EIO purposes, it is expected from the member states to communicate EIOs entirely in digital format as of 2028. Now I will show you, this is a bit of a technical slide, but I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page, how this system communicates with one another. So imagine that your competent authorities, your competent authority in Germany is this one. So, for example, Germany opts to use the reference implementation software, the eEDES system and its platform for the purposes of EIO exchanges. So this system communicates through an eCodex communication point with the infrastructure designed for the judicial cooperation communications, and on the other side, in the other member states, let's say it's Bulgaria, there is another eCodex communication point and another instance of the eEDES system. So the Bulgarian authority receives all the information and all the documents sent through this infrastructure using the very same eEDES system that you see here. It's quite a user-friendly software. It's pretty easy to use once you understand the different functionalities. The good thing with that is that with its upgrade, every time that they implement a new judicial cooperation instrument, the overall framework and the main functionalities of the system will remain the same. Yet the forms used, the operative requirements, the legal requirements will be implemented for the purposes of that specific judicial cooperation tool, following the same interface. The platform is available in all European languages. You can easily switch from one language version to another, depending on the language that you are used to working with. And the platform allows for e-signing of all the documents and all the procedures within the system. And it also delivers for automated translation. So this automated translation does not substitute the official translation that is required by the respective legislative instruments, or the type of language or the different languages the receiving side is expecting. But it helps a lot in urgent situations. It also helps a lot for operational purposes, just for you to be able to quickly understand what's going on, even if the official translation of the requests have not yet arrived. So this is about the ongoing developments, the system that exists, the EU-wide adoption of the eCodex system, the potential EU-wide adoption of the e-evidence digital exchange system, and how it will develop for all these judicial cooperation instruments. So the big question now is, why are we talking about these things and how they correlate to our project? When the project was first conceived, in 2019, 2020. We have seen all these developments coming up, and we wanted to support the member states and the judicial cooperation professionals in two main directions. So one of the direction was, okay, we now have the EIO directive, but we also see that there are a lot of differences in how the member states implement the directive in real life. And the other aspect was the newly coming eEDES system. So we recognize the need for professionals to be trained on using this system and the different functionalities it provides. So our project started with designing person-to-person training framework dedicated specifically to the business and legal aspects of the EIO, integrating guidelines on how to use the eEDES system for EIO exchanges from one stage to the next, considering the EIO workflow, contextualized by this by the discussion of these business and legal aspects that I've mentioned. So the focus was how to align practices on cross-border level through a common training framework. These materials also allowed for quite a number of national adaptations in terms of how to integrate specific case law, how to change the different modalities of the EIO workflow depending on the national specifics, how to integrate these national specifics and the different competencies there may be on national level into the training framework. So this whole set of training materials and all the guidelines on how to adapt the materials in different modalities were produced first in English and then translated in 16 different languages, including German. Then we started working with competent authorities from different member states, providing for a number of train-the-trainer activities. We implemented quite a big number of online trainings in different modalities, depending on the stage of adoption of eEDES, depending on the different strategies the member states have adopted towards the deployment of the system, and so on. However, while in some cases these trainings were very effective, in others, participants evaluated the trainings very positively, but then, depending on the strategy of the member states, the participants couldn't correlate this new knowledge and experience and bring it into actual real-time situation because the deployment of the system was delayed or something else. So in some situations, the time frame between the training and the deployment of the system was more than a year, in some cases even 2 years. So long-term, some of these trainings were not that efficient as we would have liked to. This is why we focused our efforts to produce an adaptive e-learning course based on these materials and based on our own experience. And this learning course follows again on the business, legal aspects of the EIO and the use of the system in that context. And then we also decided, following our own experience with these trainings, we have designed the so-called TREIO eEDES simulator. This is a separate instance of the eEDES system. It is exact replica of the original system of the Commission, but we've upgraded it for training purposes through a specific, simulating specific stages of the EIO workflow for purposes of self-training and self-exploration of the system. I'm not going into further details here because this is what this webinar is for, and we'll cover both instruments in much more details just in a minute. Now we are at the final stages of the project, and we are now delivering the TREIO Toolkit, which consists of different sets of materials grouped together depending on the audience. So, for example, you as professionals working with EIOs, you are one of these audiences, and we focus on providing you with a set of materials and instruments like the training material, the e-learning course, the TREIO eEDES simulator, because these are the instruments that you'll be mostly using. However, we also focus on the trainers that are interested to provide trainings in EIOs or the use of the eEDES system. So this is another audience that we try to reach. And then for the competent authorities, considering some of them are still in the process of deploying the system, how can they benefit from all these materials and adapt them to their further needs and strategies? So this is like the big picture overview of the project. And now I will pass along the word to Georgina to talk more about the TREIO e-learning course and how this could be helpful to you.
Thank you, Alex. So yes, as Alex has mentioned, I will cover some of the topics around the e-learning and a little bit about the TREIO eEDES simulator as we go along as well. We have several aims and activities, one of them being to provide an e-learning platform where to house the training and where to conduct the training as a professional. We have the online self-paced training itself, so i.e. the module, the contents, all the material combined into a package, and then we have select language versions with that provides the TREIO online training. But to complement that, we have the TREIO eEDES simulator, which provides an environment for training purposes, for real-time training experience in using eEDES and the EIO workflow. And all in all, they provide the TREIO online training and tool package for professionals in the training of EIO and eEDES. We have several use cases for the TREIO training package, and here it says package, but in actual fact we have two packages. We have a full package and we have an eEDES package. The full package is a package which consists of training materials around all things EIO, so it covers the EIO directive, it covers EIO forms, and it covers eEDES and its use. And we have the eEDES package, which I mentioned, which solely consists of materials which focus on use of eEDES itself in the EIO workflow. So it's a slightly shorter package than the full version, which covers all legal aspects, etc. as well. And we also saw the need for refresher training. No worries. Refresher training, which uses the full package, where practitioners are able to either cherry pick or be instructed different topics that maybe they need to take a refresher on or maybe have less awareness about. And then we can basically pick the materials from the full package and perform a refresher. Thank you, Alex. We have several benefits of the TREIO online training. Most obvious is the increased awareness of the EIO directive, EIO form and eEDES, including the use and benefits of transfer and digital evidences. But there are several other benefits. We have a user-centered learning approach with an active learning style for professionals throughout. So there is no instructor required. It is a self-paced course which lends itself to participants controlling their own study time. However, this does allow for greater flexibility and accessibility for professionals. We are mindful that not everyone has time to take a week off for training, for example, but you might have 2 hours on one day, you might have 30 minutes the next day. So it's allowing you to pace yourself within your work time or personal time, whichever you may choose, and throughout the different days that you may participate in the training. Another key benefit is the increased confidence professionals should have by the end of the training for use of the eEDES platform. And we have several aims and objectives, and these are focusing on a range of aspects, but mainly the knowledge of EIO directive, EIO procedures, identifying investigative measures, and being able to observe typical difficulties and how to overcome those. and also the different procedures surrounding transmission and receipt of an EIO, but also how to use eEDES in the EIO workflow. And all in all, by the end, we hope that participants will have a well-rounded knowledge of all things EIO and eEDES, whether it be legislation, business, or other. The e-learning, as I've mentioned already, is self-paced. It's fully online, and we have the two packages I mentioned, the full package, which takes 1 week, and the eEDES package, so a shorter package, which takes 2 to 3 days. That said, it probably won't take a week to perform the full package, but time is allowed for breaks, practice, various other aspects. So we've said 1 week in total for that course. The master copy is in English, and we have select translations available, and then we have targeted multiple stakeholders. So this course is meant to be for all professionals, whether you be a judge, a prosecutor, a clerk, or anything in between. So anyone handling EIOs or working with eEDES, then the training is designed for everyone. We have here the training overview, just very briefly, because there are more lessons in each of these modules. But as you can see, there are 5 modules, and each of the packages has 5 modules, albeit the eEDES package has fewer lessons and is shorter. There are some take-home tasks that we put here, which are essentially exercises to perform. And we've noted 3 key areas that these exercises cover, but there are more exercises which I'll come to later. And then we have the use of the TREIO eEDES simulator, which Alex has already mentioned, which is the thread between all of the lessons, modules, and tasks. In terms of content, we have a collection of theory and practice, as you would expect. There are legal requirements in there, procedures and best practice, and case law. So that is usually quite textual based content, but we have tried to provide visual aids where fitting. We've provided video tutorials, some demonstrations, exercises, simulations, quizzes, and also an exam for self-assessment as well. And here we just run through a couple of the examples. So we have some text-based content, we have graphics, and some animations. Some animations are in the form of clickable elements, while others are in short video format, like you see here. All videos include subtitles. And for reasons that the short videos have some sound, the long videos don't, we were aware that you might be in a work environment when you're partaking in the training, and therefore sound might not be optimal for your working environment. We have the quizzes I mentioned, so short knowledge checks. Throughout the training, they appear during the end of modules, but they also appear sometimes in exercises. And then we have the final exam, which appears in the same format as the quizzes to ensure consistency and familiarity for participants. And I mentioned we have some demonstrations, and here's a short example of what a demonstration looks like. As you can see, it is a video with subtitles. It can be paused, slowed down, and played at your convenience. And we recommend that participants follow along with the TREIO eEDES simulator as well. And here is just a short demo. As you can see, it's in a video format. Each video has subtitling. So in this case, this is from the English version, but the select languages will have the language version chosen. Some subtitles are long, some are short, depending on what we are trying to get across to you. Each video is split up into chunks, as you can see on the bottom. These chunks are usually specific sections or things that we think you should be aware of. And sometimes they might have additional information, as you can see with this little document and plus symbol on the right-hand side. And when you click on it, it provides more information about a specific item that we feel is important at this stage. So in this example, it's about searching for competent authorities, but it could be about translations or any other matter within any of the demos. We also have some simulations embedded within the course. Now, these are different from the TREIO eEDES simulator. They are specifically inside the course content itself. So as you can see, it's in the page for this particular lesson. And we'll just demonstrate briefly the simulation, but you're instructed to perform specific actions. So in this case, we're starting a request for an ITN, and as you can see, you're given an instruction and you click on the element that it tells you to click on. The one thing with the embedded simulations is that we cannot input text, so we have done this for you, but we recommend that participants go to the TREIO eEDES simulator after and carry out the same actions that we have performed within the simulation to refresh and recall the information that we've just provided in this simulated version without the textual input. We have several practical exercises, which I mentioned were the take-home exercises previously. There are a minimum set, but we have quite a few. There are actually 10 in total. And we are giving you a scenario and a task. We give you 2 exercises, so in some of them. So in around 7, you'll have 2 different copies. One is a guided set of instructions. So you're given a scenario, a task, and then you're asked to do A, B, C, D, E. And then after that, we give you an extension task, which is a different scenario, the same sort of task, but without a guided set of instructions. And you're expected to try and do that using the TREIO eEDES simulator. So we see that in the next example here, we have another scenario. Alex, could you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. We have another scenario, another task, but there are no guided instructions, and you're expected to log into the TREIO eEDES simulator and try and populate that task yourself. Obviously, you have the previous exercise that you can go back to with the guided instructions to contextualize into this task if you so need. We've designed the training for all stakeholders. We've considered several end users, and we have provided both training packages, so the full package and the eEDES package, for all participants undertaking the training. All quizzes and final examination is embedded into the course itself, so it's one whole package. But we will provide the exercises for using along with the TREIO eEDES simulator inside the course and outside the course in case you so wish to use them. We've also considered trainers. I said that the course is not instructor-led, so it doesn't actually need a trainer, but if the competent authorities would like to implement a trainer for the e-learning, then they will have access to not only the training packages, but to the storyboard files for mapping of the content and also to the solutions to the quizzes and examinations. We've also considered that competent authorities might need more than this to embed in their either their learning management system or throughout the member states. So we've provided all the developer files, including images, graphics, text, etc., a short mapping content manual, and then also the developer files themselves. And now I will hand back to Alex, who will provide a bit more information on the TREIO eEDES simulator.
I've already hinted a bit what the purpose of the simulator is and how we design it. But let's take a step back and start from the original idea. So in a normal person-to-person type of training, or in on a job situation, you'll be able to communicate with your peers, with your trainer, with your colleagues, and exercise the different aspects that you are interested between yourself along with a partner. So in such an environment, you will ideally have access to the system with different profiles, and every time that you would like to exercise a certain matter, you can send all your communications, all your requests to your training partner, and then he or she will reply to you immediately. However, for e-learning purposes in a self-paced environment, when you are all alone there, it's a bit schizophrenic to play both parts. So we have tried to substitute the need for a training partner by designing the TREIO autoresponder. Autoresponder. So the purpose of the TREIO autoresponder is exactly that. When you go through a certain scenario in one of our exercises, you're given a specific task to be performed in a specific way, following learning by doing approach. So in order to teach you how to perform a certain action, we go for step by step through the possibilities of that actions. And then the apologies. And then the autoresponder will react to what you have done following these steps in the scenarios. And it will provide you with feedback. So, for example, if you want to send an EIO, you send your EIO, and then if you are in a situation where the opposite side, the executing side, should require additional information, the TREIO autoresponder issue that request for additional information, and you have an environment that is as closest to real life as possible, because you already have simulated this type of exchange. So just to better understand the process and how close we are to a real-time environment, this is a bit of a technical slide, but it explains exactly this. So for the purposes of the TREIO project, we have installed a real eCodex communication point. It's connected to the real eCodex communication channels. And on our side, there is the TREIO eEDES simulator. As I already mentioned, it is an exact replica of the original system provided by the Commission. But we have provided for this TREIO autoresponder additional functionality so that we can better use it for training purposes. Beyond that, beyond this functionality, you would never recognize that this is a different instance from the one provided by the Commission. So every time when one of the TREIO participants sends a request or exchange communication regarding EIO or MLA or ITN requests, that communication, that data, those documents goes through the eCodex communication point, through the eCodex communication channel. However, they don't go to a real member state, but they go to our TREIO autoresponder. And then the autoresponder reacts to the communication that you sent, and you immediately see your feedback. All this is explained and contextualized depending on the stage of the EIO workflow as part of the e-learning course that was already presented by Georgina. So going from one module to another, from one topic to another through the e-learning course, the course itself guides you on the different aspects on how to use the system and provides you with references to all these exercises, explaining what are the different steps that one needs to perform in order for the autoresponder to reply and submit feedback. So as I said, this is indeed as close to real life situation as possible, because every time when you see a notification in the system, this means that it not only notify you on the communication coming from our autoresponder, but you also see all the delivery notifications regarding the communication channel itself. So you know for sure that the message is properly received on the other side, or if there is some kind of a technical problem, you also know it immediately. So you can call your support and ask for clarifications. All the scenarios that we have provided for you that were already mentioned by Georgina cover for the key steps in the EIO workflow. And as you can see from the screen and from the titles of the different scenarios, it is indeed so. So we have tried to do our best covering the most important steps you need to undertake to learn how to use the system. 7 of these scenarios cover actions that are typically executed by the issuing side. And then the last 3 cover for actions performed by the executing side. And each of these scenarios follows if-then behavior. So as it was already mentioned, the scenarios gives you a list of steps you need to perform. In some cases, the steps are misleading, meaning that they lead to wrong results. But the purpose there is to show you how the system reacts in such situations. And then what are your options? How can you proceed further when there is such a mistake? So, as I said, it's a step-by-step approach. And every time when you take a certain action, the system responds in accordance to your action. This is within the scenarios. When you go without a scenario, then obviously the system, this is not an AI system, so it does not react in all the situations. But in the most cases, you'll be able to train the main parts. This is just an example of how you would operate in situations where you would like to issue an EIO and follow the different modalities of that issuing process. So you interact with the eEDES simulator on behalf of the issuing state. And then when you log into the system, you see yourself as part of an issuing authority within the eEDES simulator domain. Then the TREIO autoresponder will be taking part in the process on behalf of the executing state. So in order to send to the TREIO autoresponder your EIO, you need to go to the list of executing states, and instead of choosing the Netherlands or Belgium, for example, as an executing state, you will choose TREIO autoresponder so that the system could reply directly to you. In the other scenario, when you would like to exercise responding to EIOs, then you enter the system, the eEDES simulator, as a professional on behalf of the executing state. However, in order to reply to an EIO, you need to first receive it. So the TREIO autoresponder allows you, being in the position of the issuing state in this scenario, to request from the autoresponder an EIO, following one of these exercises that you see here. Then the EIO is automatically sent to you, and you'll be able to exercise the different actions on behalf of the executing authorities. Now, I'm going to show you how this platform feels and looks, just to make sure that you have this knowledge prior to deciding whether to play with these tools or not. So each of you taking part in our webinar will be provided with complimentary access to both the eEDES simulator and the TREIO eLearning course. And you'll be able to go through the online training whenever you have the time, but you also have the freedom to follow along the training directly in the TREIO eEDES simulator, or just to play with the system as it goes. So this is the link to follow in order to enter the eEDES simulator, and I'm going to show you how all this looks and feels now. So when you go to the address that I showed you, and as I mentioned, we will send you a username and a password to enter these tools. So you write down your username, you write down your password, and you sign in. So when you sign into the eEDES simulator, as I said, it will look exactly like the real system. And you won't recognize that it's a different system unless you go here and see that these little indications that this is our instance of the system with the simulator embedded therein. Here is your username, and then here in the profile, you can see all the roles that you can implement with the profiles that we give you. In the real-life situations, the access rights will be provided to you by a competent authority. But for the purposes of these training activities, you are given full rights, so you can exercise with all the possible actions that could be undertaken in the EIO workflow. As I mentioned, the system is provided in all the European languages, so you can switch to German, for example, or any other language you feel comfortable at any time. I will remain in English because I don't speak German, for example. But if you change the language, you'll see that every single dashboard, menu, or notification message is translated. Now, this is a dummy account that we use for the purposes of these webinars. We haven't issued any EIOs, but we have created a number of drafts while showing off the system. And you can see them here from this dashboard. You can also see all the received requests that were exchanged by participants in other trainings. Let's start with a new request. So here we go to the Start New Request button. We initiate an EIO request. We type a title that explains the best the subject of our request. You have quite the freedom here to write whatever you want to make it as clear as possible to the other side, to the receiving side. So we initiate the EIO, and you immediately see on the screen an overview section. Here you see yourself as part of the eEDES simulator playing on the issuing state. Once you go to select the executing state and you select the TREIO autoresponder, it will appear here. And going through the different stages of the EIO exchange, you see here a section with the status of the EIO changing over time. And I'm going to show you a received request afterwards, just to see how different this overview dashboard looks. Here you can also see the different documents that will appear through the EIO exchange process. You can see whether there are any other professionals from your competent authority assigned to the case. There will be deadlines listed here, and so on and so on. Another important functionality here is the event and message timeline. So here you see all the actions, all the messages, all the notifications that are performed for the purposes of this EIO exchange. So if, for example, there is a technical problem with the receiving side and their system is out of order, they cannot receive your messages, you will immediately know it through this message timeline. You will also be able to see here all the communication exchanges, like notification on messages, notification on requests, but also notifications on documents that were attached to the EIO exchange. Now, going back to Annex A, because this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to create an EIO and to send it. So here you can see Annex A in its fullest, just as it is provided in the EIO directive. I'm not going from one section to the next. This is not an EIO training. But one important difference with the original templates is that here we have mandatory fields. And the purpose of these mandatory fields is to support you in the filling in the EIO process so that you don't forget or miss any important information that should be communicated to the other side. When you go from one section to the next, depending on the options you choose, these mandatory fields may vary and change. At any time of the process, there will be, you can perform a validation check. And for example, my Annex A is currently empty. So when I check, when I try to check it, to validate it, I immediately see that there are several sections with mandatory fields that I have to proceed with. So for example, if we go to section G, there are 2 fields in red that I need to fill in, and they're all marked with this little red star. So I know from the very beginning that these are the mandatory fields that I need to take care of. Here in the workflow button, there are a number of other support functionalities, but I'm not going to go through all of them. I just want to show you the workflow button because it contains all the possible actions that you may perform at a single point of time. So we're at the very beginning of filling in the Annex A. So the only thing that I can do for this moment of time is to complete it. But let's take another example. I will go to the received request. I'll cherry pick one of these received requests, and then we will see the differences between the very first stage and when you progress through the EIO workflow. So the most important part, the actions that you may take. So this is an EIO that was requested from the TREIO autoresponder. The TREIO autoresponder replied by sending the EIO, and you, being on the receiving side, using the eEDES simulator, have received this request. So you can review the original Annex A. You have already progressed by sending Annex B back. You can also see the content there. And here in the overview, you see how the status changed. So you know that Annex B has already been issued. There were no requests for additional information until this very moment of time. Outcome is not reached. Case is not yet closed. Here in the overview, what also changed are the list of documents that have been generated in the process. You can see all of them here. You can also see all the deadlines that are linked to this particular request received. And also that these deadlines have already expired. Now, what actions you can take? You go to the workflow and you see how different they are because you're in a completely different stage of the workflow. So you can proceed with rejecting the EIO or making a decision or going with the request for additional information in the process, closing the case, and so on and so on. And every time, depending on the stage you've reached, these actions here under the workflow button will be different. If we go to the event and message timeline, you see it's a rather short exchange of messages. In some situations, it will be much longer sequence of messages, but this particular one is rather simple. Yet you see how the system reacted and what were your reaction in the process and so on. So you see all the the full chronology of the process. If we go back to the dashboard or one of the categories, let's say if you go solely to received requests, then you also see a number of filters and search options that could support you while you're searching for a particular EIO request in this case, or any other request in the system. Because here you see that there are different types, just like from the very beginning in the dashboard. So if it's an EIO request, it will say so here. If it's an MLA request, this type will be different. From this dashboard, you can associate other professionals from your institution if you have the rights to do so. You can also immediately see the status and how far in the progress of the EIO workflow you are, and so on. And here you also have a separate dashboard with deadlines and the expected responses that you need to undertake as the main user of the system. I'm not going into any more details. These are just like the very basics, giving you an overview of how the system look and feels. And when you go through the exercises that we mentioned, you can undertake all these different actions listed there while going along with the workflow. Now, going back to my presentation, what's important next is to show you how you can receive more information about these tools. So I already told you that you will receive complimentary access to both instruments, the e-learning course and the eEDES simulator, and this will happen by the end of the week. So what else is there? We already mentioned these different sets of materials depending on the audience, the quite extensive training set of materials that we have prepared, and the different guidelines designed in the progress of the project. So all this will be available in the next 10 days on the TREIO Project website in a dedicated toolkit section. Once that section is fully populated with information, you will also receive an email notification about this, and you'll be able to go through the materials and cherry pick those that you find most interesting to you. You can also forward this presentation or the recordings from today's sessions to any of your colleagues that you might find interested in these tools. And they can sign up for accessing the tools via the link that you see on the screen. And access to the tools will be provided to them within a brief period of time. Now, something that is very important to both you, receiving the complimentary access, but also to anyone else that might be of your peers and your colleagues that might be further interested in using them. At the very beginning, when we send you the access details, there will be one common username and password set for all these tools. When you go to the e-learning course, for security purposes, you'll be asked to change your original password that we have given you and replace it with a new one. And then you'll start using the new one every time when you need to access the e-learning course. But the original one will remain valid for the purposes of the TREIO eEDES simulator and the TREIO autoresponder. So this is a silly note, but it's important sometimes because people forget about this, and then they come to us and say, okay, but my password isn't working anymore. In reality, it's working. The person just uses the wrong password. Apologies. So this is all from our side. And now I'm going to give you the word in case you have any questions or comments with regards to, with regards to what we have just presented to you.
Thank you, Alex. Does anyone have any questions? If you have questions, obviously you can post them in the chat and we will voice them for you, or you can voice them yourselves if you're happy to be on the recording. I see there are no questions in the chat yet. But if you do have questions and you're frantically typing away, then please just post them. We have a few things that we maybe can take from some of the previous days where we can provide you some information. And I think actually Alex and I have quite extensively covered these things, but just to reiterate, so you will be given complimentary access to the TREIO tools as mentioned by Alex there. But if your colleagues wish to have access to these tools as well, then you are to use the link that Alex just presented on the slide. We don't expect you to have jotted that down. You will be sent that link with the information as well. We have obviously designed the person-to-person trainings, and we've also got the e-learning and the TREIO eEDES simulator. So all of those should be quite useful to you in the training on EIO and eEDES. And I think we've covered that quite extensively about what each of them are, at least the e-learning and the TREIO eEDES simulator. We've been asked previously if we can organise training sessions in member states. Unfortunately, the TREIO project is soon to be ending very promptly. So unfortunately, we aren't able to organise any person-to-person trainings any longer, but as we have given you access to the e-learning, or at least we'll be giving you access to the e-learning, then you'll have that available to you to perform some trainings in a self-paced manner. In terms of the deployment of eEDES, I think that's very much in the hands of member states, but obviously we have the TREIO eEDES simulator, which doesn't require any deployment of eEDES. So to train and practice how to use eEDES, you don't have to have a national context set up for eEDES. The e-learning and also the person-to-person trainings have included both theory and practice. So hopefully we've covered the wealth of information that you may require in terms of EIO and eEDES. And we've tried to, as much as possible, suggest different modalities, which Alex and I have previously mentioned in terms of implementation, which is also why we have two e-learning packages. And I think that's pretty much it, unless there's other points, Alex, that I have missed, as I'm wary of time right now, or conscious of time at least.
Yeah, we are going a bit over the originally planned time frame, but I think there are two important bits that also came from previous sessions that could be interesting to participants. There was one question about the involvement of Eurojust. Currently, there are no profiles assigned to the competencies of Eurojust representatives, but as far as we are aware, from the feedback received from the Commission, they are working on implementing such profiles. So I would guess rather soon there will be such functionality implemented in the system, and Eurojust will be able to successfully join the platform as well. Another point that a participant made was about the search of competent authorities and how it is handled in the system. Currently, eEDES forwards you to the EGN Atlas, and you find the competent authorities in the usual way you do it just now. But the Commission is also working on upgrading the eEDES platform, integrating the EGN Atlas in the main functionality of the platform in order to support you in this process in a more automated way. There were couple of, I think, very technical questions from some of the participants. For example, what kind of files could be attached to the EIO and exchanged through the system? The system allows for documents, video, audio files, but to a certain size, and the size is limited by the infrastructure of eCodex itself. So eCodex cannot transfer messages beyond a total size of 2 gigabytes. So this is also reflected in the eEDES system. I know that both the Commission, along with the European agencies, they're working on how to progress further for the purposes of exchanging larger files, but there is no decision reached yet. So this is still in progress and is to come in future. But I think these are the most important ones.
I think maybe, Alex, one more thing would be the TREIO eEDES simulator is not meant to replace eEDES itself. It's meant to be a platform for training and a safe haven to practice and work on the EIO workflow within eEDES. So it's important not to include any personal data in the TREIO eEDES simulator. I think that's just one key thing to highlight. So we have given you exercises with fictitious data. And if you're to practice, then you need to also use fictitious data and don't implement any data sensitivity or anything like that within the simulator.
Yes, that's indeed an important note. So I think we have exhausted most of the topics that come straight to our minds. But again, you're free to delve deeper in case you have some questions of your own or some comments of your own with regards to what we've presented. If there's anyone, please feel free to speak or write your comments in the chat. Okay, I don't see any. So then we'll be ready to close the session as of now. However, this is not the end of the conversation. As I already told you, you can expect from us several communications on different materials and information. And of course, every time when you have a question regarding the tools that we have presented, the access that we are to provide you with, or anything else regarding our materials, you can always come back to us over email using office@treio.eu, and we'll be there to answer to all your questions. So feel free, even if you don't consider a specific question at this moment of time, just feel free to come back to us and express yourself in writing. Thank you for registering, for being here today, for listening. And I hope you will enjoy using the tools that we have created for you. So have a nice week from our side, and hopefully we'll stay in touch. Thank you and goodbye.